Welcome into our lives.
And welcome to the Expanders Club podcast.
We're so happy to have you.
Join us as we embark on a journey of deep exploration, soul searching, and asking the hard questions.
With the goal of truly understanding the most aligned, empowered, and purposeful versions of ourselves.
We want to live an extraordinary life, and we're willing to dig deep to find out what it takes.
Buckle up. You're about to meet a new version of yourself, an extraordinary one. Mads, great to frickin' see you, buddy.
Brooke, so good to see you.
It's
been too long.
I know. It's been like 2 weeks. You were on a great adventure that we all hope to hear about someday.
Guys, yeah, I mean, you know you're going to hear about it soon. Hoffman, I feel like I'm a new woman.
You look like a new woman. You're just like glowing, and like you look like you aged in reverse a little bit. It took like maybe like 3 to 4 years off. Like,
what a gift. Thank you for saying such things to me. I will say that I feel like this younger spurt of energy. I feel more playful. I feel more fun and alive.
Yeah. I don't think we've realized the energetic weight that we carry.
Honestly, that's it. And especially in the work that we do, it's easy to be constantly on this journey of like growing and learning and focusing on the heavy stuff. But you have to be able to balance it with the fun and the play. And I think I really found that this past week. And I got to, after the personal development retreat, I just did a solo road trip and camping trip and like came back down the coast of Big Sur. And I was blasting old music, like throwbacks and like singing back to the 90s and just like playing with myself and just like having so much fun and like spotting animals like sea otters in the water and just being so aware, like but watching butterflies and just like noticing everything and being so like in my childlike state.
Yes.
And it was magic.
Yeah. And how it's so funny that you bring that up, because I had that moment this morning, and we actually talk about that a little bit in this episode. Like recognizing the beauty in the small moments, the small things around us, and like how much this is such a simple example. This morning on my walk, I just like all these different flowering trees and flowers in my neighborhood, which I live in the city. But seeing all these things, like recognizing them all within this like what would not be considered necessarily out in nature, but just within the blocks that I have access to in my 20-minute morning walk, seeing all of this beauty. And you realize like having that perspective, how much it shifts your attitude, your perspective, your joy in your day.
It is so true. I love that. I think, and for this personal development retreat, I took 10 days off my phone. And I think that was the big part of it. I am telling you, it was insane. The level of presence that I felt. I didn't even want to get back on my phone. Like, even though they gave it back to me because it's like physically taken away from you, I still like kept it on Do Not Disturb for 4 more days and just like didn't look at it. And the way the world looks so much more vibrant. I was so much more aware of my surroundings. I literally would just take my shoes off, walk on the grass and walk on the ground, and I felt it vibrate through my body. Like, my level of presence was to another level. And I was like, oh, I can always have this. We can always have this if we want this.
Yeah, that's a great lesson. And it changes your relationship to everything. For me, what I notice when I'm away from my phone, 10 days sounds amazing. I haven't done that in a long time. Is that your relationship to time changes. Yeah. Like time slows down so much.
Yes.
And that's so freeing and empowering.
I know. I spent a lot of time just sitting in nature, like really just like sitting, just pondering, just like being there. And you're right, the days felt wildly long. I was like, wow, it feels like I could achieve so much. It feels like I've got so much spaciousness for this. Yeah. But in day-to-day life, it would never feel like that. It's like, go, race, this, that, pick up your phone. I had to like physically work through the my body like reaching for my phone, and like actually when I opened up my phone at my thumb, like it wanted to go to certain apps like Instagram.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was like so conscious to not, and that awareness was like, whoa, it's become like in my body.
Dude, it's like walking. Yeah, you don't even think about it. It's oh yeah.
That
it's
brought up a lot.
It's pretty messed up. Fuck. What are we gonna do about that? My God.
I mean, I can't recommend it enough. Like if anyone is struggling with their mental health, anxiety, like just stress, anything, and I know, you know, that it's so much deeper than this, but just to try that as like a first step, to just actually give yourself the space, like delete the app that you are controlled by, whatever that is, you know, just delete it for a week. Like it's okay. Like you're not going to miss anything. I genuinely came back and I was like, I missed like the Australian breakdancer like news. Like, that's it. Like,
dude, I have to tell you the funniest thing with that. I missed it too. I had no idea about it. I've been on my phone a lot less. I also, you know me, I'm not tuned into pop culture. Like the only thing in my algorithm is spiritual stuff when I am on. And Dennis was telling me about it this morning. He's like, Ragath or whatever. What's her name?
Rhaegon.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh my God. So he's showing me videos. Bowie looks over at one of the videos and goes, Dada, is that Maddie?
Oh, what? Oh my God. Bowie.
Dying. I'm like, oh my God, you have to tell Maddie that. That's so good. I don't know. Maybe she just knew the girl was Australian. I don't know what vibe she was getting, but she's like, Dada, is that Maddie?
Oh my God. I'm like, don't know whether to be like how offended to be. I mean, she's actually really gorgeous and cool. There's something more to her. Like I've been like reading into her, and she's actually like an academic that pushed to get breakdancing in the Olympics. And then she kind of, I feel like it was almost planned. I don't know. It's weird. I don't fully get it. I missed it, so I don't really care.
I need to do more discovery. I loved it. I love the vibe. But I was like, did she like place? And Dennis was like, no, she didn't even get a single point. Like, like okay. I mean, I don't know anything about dancing.
No. But like my point is, like anything that happened during the week, like you can come back online and be like, okay, cool. Like I can get a few like news updates or whatever, and ask your friends like, how was it? What happened in the past week? And they're like, great. They give you like an overview, but it's nothing that you need to have texted your friends every single day or have been on social media every single day to see. I'm like, oh, like I was able to go off and achieve so much more in my life and create this time for myself and come back so refreshed and be like, didn't miss a thing. Whereas when you're in it, you're like, oh crap, I got to check what's going on. Like I got to talk to this person. I got to talk to that person.
Yep.
There's no urgency. You just don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been feeling called, and I think a lot of people have, to kind of start shedding stuff. Like examine how it's really serving you, or if it is, and if it's not, kind of shed it. And I have to tell you, I think you're going to be really surprised. I have given up caffeine.
Oh my gosh.
So no matcha.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a week and a half, or maybe a little over a week and a half. And you know, so guys, not that I like drink a lot of caffeine by any means, but like my morning matcha is like, I live and die by. Yeah.
I mean,
it's like
this has been
joy. It's truly a joyful part of my day.
It's such a joy. Oh, matcha latte.
Yeah. And I just kept getting the hit. I'd been getting it for a while. Like back in July, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to give up. I think I told you that I thought I was going to give up the matcha latte for the month of August. And then August came and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Actually.
Yeah. And then I didn't feel well a few weekends ago, and I kept getting the hit that like, hey, this is like a symptom from adrenal fatigue, which, you know, I've been for a long time fighting symptoms like that and trying to recharge my energy. So I was like, that's it. I'm going to give up caffeine. And I finally did. And more than what, I don't really notice a big difference in energy. I notice that I'm way more in tune with my body and how I'm feeling. And so I'm like hydrating more and doing more. I've been doing green juice and like actually eating better because I'm just have this more awareness of like, okay, I'm ready for something that fuels me. I'm ready for something with protein. I'm ready for, my body's wanting this right now. And then psychically, it's been clearing things up too, and like giving me or aiding me in a more powerful psychic connection. So did it for the adrenals, and having a bunch of great benefits.
Did it for the adrenals, staying for the everything else.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And not to say that mentally I don't miss my matcha, because I do.
But isn't it? I mean, wow, firstly, congratulations. I'm so impressed by you.
Thank you.
That's a big move. But what a beautiful reminder to listen to your body. And even though it's something that you've done for so long, it's that habit, it's that one thing that you really want. You were just getting pings. It was like, okay, there's something here. Like, I'm feeling like I need to give this up. Intuitively, I feel it. And just listening to that and being willing to like really change something up in your daily to test it out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you go back to it or whatever, but if you're really listening to yourself now, knowing how good you could feel, good for you. That's like fully taking control.
Yeah. I think that's something that I continue to like be driving toward, is if I'm one, listening, obviously, like listening and understanding what you need, what's coming through for you on, all the levels. But then when you have this, if there's something you want to do, just fucking do it. And it doesn't have to be this commitment forever. Like, hey, I want to get up earlier. Hey, another thing I've started is this, like, I've been I know a lot about the lymphatic system. I know how much it helps everyone, but especially me with my Lyme disease, to have a healthy lymphatic system. I've been wanting to work different routines into my daily. 2 weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And now every morning I have this lymphatic routine that I do. And it's like that attitude of like, I'm just going to do it. Like, and then you do it, and then it just becomes a part of you, versus like how much energy do you spend on thinking about something that you should do and want to do. And like, it's almost, that's more work than just like doing it.
Oh my God, it truly is. You can just fully be in your head like, oh, I should do that thing. And it's just this big burden that builds up. It's just like, just do it. Take action.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're both making strides over here. I hope you guys are too.
Strides. It's feeling good. Yeah. We're so inspiring.
I mean, no, but I think everyone's collectively, a lot of people are feeling a lot of the same things. And, as summer rounds out, we're getting ready for Virgo season at the end of August, heading into September. And that feels like a time for where some like real productivity is going to come into play for all of us. Like, we're all shifting through these changes and like feeling out maybe some new versions of ourselves or new things we want to explore. I think like September, October is going to be time to like get after it in really exciting ways.
Oh, so excited. Ready for that. Yeah.
And this episode, I am really excited for everyone to listen to. We actually like cover a lot, all under the theme of knowing and understanding yourself. Which I think, Mads, you and I would both say is like pretty foundational work in getting to anywhere that you want to go.
Oh my God, that is the work that we are doing. But it feels so good to get to know yourself on a deeper level. And the more that you do, the more you just like, you get to learn about yourself. How exciting that you get to create this life that suits you. When you're just like living as you think you should and doing what other people are doing, it's just, you're never going to be as happy as when you really truly do the things that you know make you feel good because you know what you want and you know who you are. What a blessing.
Yeah. Like, where are you going without that clarity? How do you know your purpose? How do you know your values? How do you know how you want to show up? How do you know what you actually want? Your soul, the deepest part of you, how do you know what that actually wants versus you're just out in the world being reactive? And I think we've all been certainly in that reactive state, and like, to know yourself is not an easy task either,
Yeah, like Jenny says, it's a lifelong pursuit.
Yes, for sure. And we're constantly changing as well. But committing to it and like understanding the foundation of who you are, your values, how you want to show up is a game changer.
Yeah, it really is. How do you like this version of yourself?
I'm loving it. I think it's a part I it's a little self-discovery and it's more but it's also more of just like pulling out the realities of who I have always been and like bringing them out into the world, for the first time.
Yeah, it's such a journey back to who you actually are. I feel the same. It's like actually just realizing who I've always been. And I think talking about the playful state of like actually bringing out that inner child and remembering to have fun, because that's just, and Jenny speaks about that, just like being able to bring humor, being able to be playful. That's, you always have to have that. And I think I've been coming back to that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, not taking it all so seriously, even though we do want to grow and evolve and like then we also have all of our human stuff to deal with. Like it actually, there's a lot of magic and mystery and fun within it all. And like even just the fact that we are humans on this planet, like I know I talk about this all the time, but like the only planet that has freaking grass and trees and butterflies and birds and like that's wild. That is wild.
And that we're a speck. We're a freaking speck.
Yeah.
In the galaxy.
Yes.
Or
we are the whole galaxy. It's one or the other. Probably both at the same time.
I think we think we're everything. Like in this world where it's like, this is it. But I think when you believe that there's more out there, I feel more hope. Because I'm like, we're ruining this world. So I hope there's some more, this planet. I hope there's some more planets out there.
Well, yes. There's a belief, I'm studying quantum physics right now, and there's this belief that like we are all come from this, like we essentially are all this subatomic particle. We're all this one particle, but this particle knows no bounds. It can be everywhere at all at once. It can be whatever it, whatever consciousness brings it into. Like, so it's actually, you hear in all different kinds of religion and beliefs like how we are all connected. It's like actually we are all this one particle that is energy and is in all places at once on all timelines, constantly moving and visually creating anything that consciousness believes it to be.
I kind of lost you.
Yeah. I get it. I understand that. I'll come back to that when I have a better way of explaining it.
I wish I could fully comprehend that, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
It sounds powerful.
It is, and I'm still processing it and understanding it, but maybe I'll get back to you guys when I have a better way of explaining it.
I mean, look at this girl studying quantum physics. Fucking hell.
I'm just like it's like I'm preparing for some kind of test that I don't know what I'm going to take because I'm just like ferociously absorbing, learning, like studying things right now. I'm like plowing through books. Dennis is like, what is up with all the books, dude? Like every day a new book comes to our house. He's like, all right, I'm doing Kabbalah, which I know you started listening to. I'm almost done with Kabbalah too. I have a bunch of other things.
Wow.
I'm doing my like psychic masterclass with Kate, like just like feeling I've been hanging in the Akashic records a lot and learning a lot there lately. Like,
I mean, how much time are you spending on this a day?
I mean, every spare second that I have whenever I'm not working or with Bowie.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Dedicated.
It feels good. Like I said, I'm preparing for something. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but
just learning as much as possible before the world blows up and you just have all the knowledge you need. You know how to get to the other planets.
Yeah, exactly. Where is the nearest exit?
We must prepare.
Yeah, but don't worry, I'll let you guys know as soon as I know. I'll share.
Keep us updated on your quantum physics research.
Gatekeeping on this information. But excited for everyone to listen to this. Jenny is just like an incredible human. She is definitely from another planet in all the best ways and has really beautiful insight. And she gets into archetypes, how to understand and know your archetype, what it can do for you, really, really knowing yourself. We also talk about something interesting that, you know, I think we could have gone a lot further into, but didn't, because we had such an engaging conversation already. But something I'm facing is like, or I'm facing mentally, I don't know if I'm actually facing it out in the world. Like, once you do discover who you are and you know no doubts for yourself, how that impacts your relationships of these people who knew this other version of you that wasn't truly you.
That's, you know, so wild you say that. I literally just had this conversation with friends the other day. That's the way I'm feeling like I've come to this different version of myself, and it's almost like you then have to reintroduce yourself to your old friends. Yeah. And for me, like going back to Australia, introducing myself, being like, guys, this is who I am now, and allowing space that others have as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we're all growing in our own way and developing.
Yes.
And it gives people permission to be like, oh, okay, I can be a different version of myself. I don't have to fall into that old self.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting. I don't have any answers around it. I just know, I'm on the cusp of kind of unveiling myself. I don't know if that's not exactly what I want to say, but like, I no longer can operate in the ways that don't feel like me. I'm like shutting those very quickly. And actually, like, listening back, when I was editing the episode, I was like, oh shit, I guess I'm kind of revealing a lot of that in this episode, which I didn't mean to, because I've been thinking about, like, how am I going to share this new version of me with people, like, and I don't have the answer yet. I guess if you listen to the episode, let me know your thoughts, because I kind of share a lot in there, but
I know. I think we should do a rebirthing party for us. Everyone should get a rebirthing party, an unveiling of their new version themselves. They can choose it at any age that they're turning.
Oh my God.
That's what I'll do for my 35th birthday.
We could totally make that a thing.
The rebirth.
I love that. Yes.
Oh.
And now know me as this.
This is me now. I know. Well, like, I was trying to do a rebrand as Madeline, but that didn't really stick. But like, I wanted it to be the new mature.
Anyone?
Nah, like it took me, I like tried to do it for 2 days and then it like faded. But I was introducing myself at Hoffman as Madeline. I was like, now I'm Madeline. I'm this new mature version of me. But yeah.
Good. That's so good.
So yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, rebrand.
It's a great idea. I'm down. Let's have a rebirthing party. Who's in?
I like this. Yeah, you guys have great chats. I really like this episode. Jenny is awesome, and she seems like a wise soul for sure.
Yeah, she's very special. She's going to send us. She's actually not a social media person, which bless her. I love that even more about her. Yes, which is probably why she shows up so authentically and speaks so clearly and feels so present. You guys will see and feel that in this episode. But she is going to send us a link that we will attach to the show notes so you can find her and do an archetype reading with her. It was really fun and really impactful for me, and is definitely going to be a tool in my personal rebirth/rebrand. So excited to hear what you guys think on the other side of this. If you are enjoying our content, getting anything out of this, we would ask that you please rate and review us on Spotify, Apple, wherever else you might listen. Give us some feedback in the DMs on Instagram, especially at Expanders Club. Let us know how you're feeling about all this, what you want more of, what you want less of. We're here for you. So we're hoping you're loving it much as we're here for ourselves. I mean, they already know the truth. No,
it's so self-indulged, but we love you guys, and hopefully you're still listening.
It's multi-purpose. hopefully, I think a lot of, if we're feeling things, I think a lot of people are. And that's what I find out in the world is like we're all kind of feeling very similar stuff at the same time, going through very similar stuff. And there's just a lack of opportunity to talk about it, to be able to relate and process together. So that's what we're
This is
doing
the
here.
space.
Yeah. And we're hoping it helps. And yeah, thanks guys for hanging with us.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the app.
All right. Jenny, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited for our conversation because I just know all the different directions it can go. And I have a first question for you that is actually, when you sit and think about it, it's actually quite profound, and I think you'll really appreciate it in a different way than most. But it's a question we're probably asked a million times in our lives, and don't a lot of us like don't really know the actual answer.
Mm.
And that is, who are you?
Mm. Gosh, so many ways I could answer that question. I originally, as soon as you asked, I felt like saying I'm an old soul.
Mm, mm,
I've
mhm,
been here before. Um, and there are so many more people, the more I share that about myself, who I end up connecting with who feel the same way or who vibrate at a similar frequency. I also believe that this knowing of the self is something that is a lifelong journey. So I
mhm.
can tell you who I am right now. But I'm always evolving, as are you. And so right now I am a seeker. I'm always looking for truth and this really purest expression of myself and
Mhm.
others. I love ideas. I'm such a learner. Um, but really, the other piece that I'm starting to find about myself, Brooke, that is so delightful, because I turned 40 this year, and I'm like, man, this growing up thing feels funny because I am an old soul. I feel like as a child, I never actually the world didn't make sense to me because I had
Mhm.
no agency.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate
But
to that.
now that I'm getting closer to what feels like my real age, in life as a human, it's becoming easier. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's so much humor that I think is important to embrace in life, and I have started doing that more and more. Um, and I'm starting to find that true just joy and giggles and not taking myself so seriously is the path for me right now.
I love that because I'm in a place where I'm kind of like, it's all really funny or it's really sad. And like, and I'm gonna go to the side of it being humorous.
Mhm. Yeah, that idea that, you laugh not to cry is,
Mm,
I feel that deeply.
mhm, mhm.
Um, but yeah, there's something about looking at things through a lens of humor that
Yeah.
has been very life-giving to me, inspiring to me lately. So,
I think too, one, all of that is so beautiful, but I think too, as from the perspective of an old soul, it's almost like it's also almost this humor in like it's it's kind of hilarious, all the little things that we get tied up and twisted in and care about. And like there's a piece of us that actually knows like, okay, none of this actually matters. This is all just for the experience, the evolution, the expansion. And so like sometimes from there I'm like, that's where it gets kind of humorous.
agree. Time isn't real. None of this is real, or everything is real, and there's all of these different realities that are stacked on top of themselves that are playing out in front of us. And so you can find humor in that. I think you can decide not to follow the negativity or the sadness to a place, but instead choose to look at life as this great lesson.
Yeah, an experience. I mean, I'm not sure what I believe about life, like the different, like I could believe all of it. Like there's a million different timelines happening. None of this is real. None of this really matters. We're we're plugged in. I actually had a dream once where, okay, I say a dream, but it was freaking real. I literally felt myself getting plugged back, my head getting plugged back into something, and I like woke up gasping. And
Whoa.
it felt so, it was so real. It was so real. You have those dreams that are real, like
Yes.
that. Yes. So, but there's no like hill that I'm willing to die on for that. But I love, there's this visual. Do you ever watch the show Cosmos, the like the remake of it?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Um, so the first episode, and mind you, I literally every time I would smoke cannabis, which I don't do at all anymore, but like, used to do it to kind of unwind at the end of the day. And it wasn't that often. It'd be like a few Saturdays here and there. I would turn that show on because the first episode is I mean, it's all amazing, but the first episode is mind blowing. They literally have a visual, like you're standing on the planet. They're in this little fake spaceship and you're on planet Earth. And then they pull back and you see all of the planets in our solar system. Then they pull back and you see the whole Milky Way galaxy. And then you start to pull back and you see billions of galaxies. And like they know for a fact that like that part's true.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, holy shit. How could we believe that there's any significance to any of this? Like,
Yeah. Or you could flip it and say everything matters. There's
Yes.
significance in everything. This experience that we're having, there's a reason behind it. I mean, I think that both things can be true, and there's a duality there that's really kind of beautiful to
Yeah.
hold.
Maybe a significance more leaning in the like beautiful direction, like look at the meaning of all these things for whatever our
Mm-hmm.
growth, our evolution,
Mm-hmm.
our experience, versus
Right.
significance in like
But the person
I'm
who cut you off in traffic,
right,
that isn't
right, right, yeah, or stressing that you overspent on something, or like yeah, all
Mhm.
those little things that we find ourselves getting tied up in and like holding in our bodies and like worrying about in the day to day that take us out of the moments of understanding the actual significance of this experience, which is like one of the things that I love so much. Like you look around, like we are living on a planet that I have milkweed that my daughter and I monitor, and we have a bunch of caterpillars, and like the past few days we've had a bunch of our butterflies
Mhm.
hatch or come out of their chrysalis, and it's like, holy shit, like this thing was literally crawling on the ground a few days ago. It then formed this chrysalis that's green and has gold specks on it. And then it turned into a creature that's a different color than it was. And it can freaking fly now? Like, what? Like,
Yeah,
we are living on a planet where that is possible, and like all the different types of animals and trees and plants and flowers. And it's like, whoa, this
right.
is really cool.
Yeah, I remember when I learned about butterflies and how the chrysalis that they form around themselves is their body, and they become goo in the middle, and they have to completely recreate themselves. I can't fathom it, but yet I relate to it somehow. This mushy middle part of life
Yes.
that I feel middle age is that
Mm-hmm.
recalibration, reinvention, all of the as far as how are we looking at what we've done before and the way that we've lived our life, and then how can we completely shift it
Yeah.
into this really gorgeous next level thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very mind-blowing. I mean, I could definitely sit with you and talk about the tiniest little things that blow my mind.
Yeah, so I want to talk about this like middle age moment that a lot of us are having, and I don't even really like to call it that. And I think, in maybe what the language is. Maybe is it like your lunar return that is happening in astrology? I think like 20 in your late 20s, early 30s, it's your solar return, and I think like late 30s, early 40s, it might be your lunar return. And so it's kind of this moment that a lot of people have kind of an awakening. And for me, it came through some really hard lessons that I probably could have learned in easier ways had I been paying attention, but that's a whole other story. But this, moment of awakening or path to striving to understand myself and feel empowered and embodied and realize like, oh, there's a new version of me emerging, came through, in this lunar return. And I woke up one day asking, not by choice, more in crisis, who am I? Like, who the heck am I? Like, woke up and didn't know who I was when I came from a place where I really, really thought I did. So that was really scary. And like the path to figuring that out is really interesting. But you have developed and share a tool that helps answer that question, at least like is a big leap into that question and that discovery and understanding. And so I want to talk more about like the path to self-discovery, but I think first, can you explain this modality, this process that you've developed and are sharing with people and that you shared with me and was super impactful?
Sure. Yeah, so I am just super interested in Carl Jung as a psychologist, as a guide. A lot of folks in psychology basically wrote him off because they said that a lot of his work was deemed pseudoscience, which honestly just made me more interested.
Same.
He's the one who developed, the terms introversion and extroversion, but he also talks about synchronicity, and he talks about dream states, and he talks about how you can analyze your dreams for greater understanding.
And he was a big supporter of astrology as well.
Yes. And if you look at the MBTI personality test or Enneagram even, there's a lot of overlap there with how he perceived the world and the theories that he put out there. But the piece that I think is most interesting is that he categorizes consciousness into three parts. The first is true consciousness. That's what we're aware of in our day to day. And then there's the personal unconscious. And that is, if you think about an iceberg, right? So 10% above the surface, let's call that your consciousness. And then right below that is your personal unconscious. And that part is your own lived experiences, your own belief system that has developed within your own life. And then way deep below that is the collective unconscious. And as part of the collective unconscious, the way that Jung would define that is he would say, there is an inherited psychology that we all share as human beings. And we don't even know that it's there. It's not something that we're aware of, but it's driving us in the way we express ourselves and personality. And there are all of these characters that are a part of the collective unconscious, and those are archetypes. And so within the archetypal realm, I just have found that there's so much richness and opportunity to gain a deeper understanding of the self. And I have I have developed a process that really is one that I just facilitate. I started doing this for brands. I'm a former marketing executive and was working on my master's thesis actually with the surgical nonprofit that went around the world and did really beautiful surgical work for children, primarily who could not otherwise have access to it. And the founder, who was and is a great human, was having a hard time distinguishing the brand from himself, which is super common, right?
Yeah.
That happens all the time. And I was looking for a way to get him out of his own head. And I came across this really great book. It's called Archetypes and Branding. And as part of the book, there's all of these cards. There's 60 of them in total.
For those of you listening, she's showing some really beautiful. These are like some of the most beautiful, some of the most beautiful artwork I've ever seen. Yeah. Check it out on YouTube if you want to get some glimpses of them.
So these cards are based in the 12 archetypes that Jung came up with originally, and basically puts them into families of 5. So there's 60 total. And the way that I like to work is to set them all out on a table and engage the participant in an opportunity to just like intuitively go through the cards and decide what resonates with them personally, and whether it's something that they feel might be core to who they are or that they might aspire to be. Mm-hmm. Just looking at the image, just looking at the name of the card. And I sometimes scare people because I will time them. So you have 10 minutes. And what I have found is through this process, which originally started as this opportunity for brands to better know themselves, and particularly when there is like the question of the founder versus the brand itself, moving into doing that for people, you know, and looking at what is your archetype profile, you know, what stands out among the rest, and how do you present yourself to the world or desire to present yourself to the world. It can be a really powerful process.
I have to stop you there because it is so funny. I've done, I've had brands. I've done a whole branding process several times, not this way, but with the same idea. And I know there's a lot of founders listening. And when we start talking to a marketer, it makes absolute sense that that's where you start. And yet we don't think to apply that to our own lives. Like, hey, if you want to understand the direction this brand's going to go, if you want to understand how to represent yourself out in the world so people understand you, if you want to understand the language or the path that best suits and represents you and is going to like make you feel the most like yourself, here's a baseline for understanding that. Like, you would think that that's like probably something you would want to learn very early in life, and maybe a few times, because as you had said earlier, like, we change and evolve, and these different things these different archetypes might change with that. But it's so funny because you can explain this to a founder or a marketer and you're like, yes, absolutely, this is where you start day one when you're building a brand. Mm-hmm. Yet when we're building ourselves as humans, I think a lot of people probably haven't even ever considered an exercise like this, or sitting down and actually asking themselves, who am I? What are my values? How do I best represent in the world?
I think that's right on. And it can be just beautifully foundational, especially when we are facing that question in a new way of who am I? I have sat with some really successful humans who, similar to you, thought, this is who I am, know who I am. And they gravitated to a lot of cards that had what I would call harder edges.
Mm-hmm.
The softer cards they would kind of set aside, and the closer we got to this understanding of themselves, the more that we would start pulling from that stack of cards that surprised them even,
Yeah.
or they realized, oh, who I think I am is who I feel I have to be for other people, right? And I think in this middle age, I have followed this group called the Modern Elder, and I kind of like that too as an alternative term. Uh, as we reach this place where, we start to examine ourselves outside of the roles that we play for others,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah.
similar to my path too. I set these cards down when I became a stay-at-home mom, and I had not touched them for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then similarly to you, kind of wanted to explore who I am outside of the roles I play, um, the needs I fill for other people, and really to be vulnerable with myself. For the first time,
Yeah.
um, I started to do some really beautiful work in a group setting, and the woman who runs this community, it's called The Great Work, and I just adore her. She had me do an archetype profile session for her,
Mm-hmm.
and afterwards she said, okay, now I need you to do this for everyone
Yes. Yes.
in the community, because this peels away the onion. This is giving me such a great sense of self. And so now I've been doing it more and more and more for people. And at first, these were women who I know and I felt very comfortable with, and I could assert myself and guide them in a way that, was comfortable for me,
Yeah.
because it was a safe place for me. I had already been vulnerable with them. But then as this group has grown, I've started holding sessions for men and women who are complete strangers
Mm-hmm.
to me,
Mm-hmm.
and learning a little bit about myself and my intuitive gifts, and you can probably speak to this, Brooke, because we've done this together, is that yes, the cards do a lot of the work, but there's this texture of the session that kind of starts to emerge where all of a sudden this is something that is almost being channeled through our combined energies. And it
Yes.
is an opportunity for me to acknowledge that one of my great gifts is to see the potential in others. And these cards are just a beautiful tool for me to be able to help them get there.
Yes.
Um, and the more open someone is to that experience, the faster we go and the more
Mm-hmm.
impactful it feels.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about, I have a lot of things to say and questions to ask about what you just shared, but first, I'm curious, tell me about your experience, your personal experience with that and leaning into trusting your own intuition and having others trust it as well, because I think there are many people listening, myself included, who have are in this awakening and are like, whoa, I have some abilities here.
Mhm.
And it's one thing to believe them yourself, right? It's another thing when, and maybe your close friends, I'm kind of in that stage, I believe it, my close friends believe it. And now approaching strangers, will they believe it? Will I have those powers? Will it all work out? What has been your experience with that? Because that's a very vulnerable thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I will say that I don't come out of the gate and tell anyone
Yeah.
that I have these gifts, right? I want them to have the experience in session that is best for them. And so if they too are intuitive, they can pick up on what I'm doing. I've
Mhm.
had a woman go,
Mhm.
hey, you were totally reading me right there. I could feel that. I could tell what you were doing
Yeah.
because you were saying things before I could say them,
Yeah.
and you were connecting in ways that um, were not just right there in the open. And really, I will say that it's been a process, but part of it has been allowing people to see me in all of my ways, right? In all of the pieces of me, the vulnerability there
Mm-hmm.
is the place that I needed to start.
Yeah.
So doing and saying things not because I knew that that would be what they wanted to hear, but doing and saying things that were true for me
Yes, that's a big step.
was a
Yeah.
huge step,
Yeah.
and just the acknowledgement of that.
Yeah.
And then I think it also takes people who can see your gifts and who open doors for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That at least has been my experience, where Faith, for example, the woman who runs the great work, opened a huge door for me and
Yeah.
said, you may not feel ready, but I know you're ready, and I'm going to
Yes.
put you in this position.
Yeah.
Um, those people who, I'll say it like this, those people who can see these gorgeously feathered birds that you've put in a golden little
Mm-hmm.
cage right here, and they take that little door and they open it for
Yes.
you and they let that fly out of you. That for me has been the trust in other people to do that before I'm ready to do it for myself has been really critical. And then the practice itself and being vulnerable and using my intuition, it becomes this snowball effect where
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden I'm really living this life that I have always wanted to live, and everything feels more beautiful and crisper around the edges and has more color in it. And I find myself manifesting things and it's coming easily to me.
Yeah.
That's how I know I'm on the right track.
Yep.
And not everybody's going to love that. And that's the fear I had to get past.
Yes.
But trusting in the wisdom of my own instincts is the hardest thing for me to do.
Mm.
And yet, when I do it, I can absolutely immediately see the benefit of it. So it's like working a muscle.
I love that. Trust in the wisdom of your own instincts. Yeah, that hits. And I think for people like you and I, especially like who want to, like I love the visual of the golden feathers in the cage. We want to be those people like ripping down the cages, breaking the doors open for others. And so
Yeah.
we need to do that for ourselves first. And sometimes that's what helps me is like I saw you when we were together. I was like, you absolutely have, I was like basically trying to convince you to blow this thing up, change the course that you're seeing for your life currently. And like, because I was like, you have a gift, you have powers, like, and to be our own cheerleader like that
Mm-hmm.
is kind of the first biggest step and the hardest step. But once we can do it for ourselves, like that magnifies what we can do for others. And I think for both of us, that feels like a big part of our purpose.
I 100% agree. And I will pull the muse from your profile because the muse is all about seeing the potential in others and reflecting that
Mm-hmm.
back.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back on my life and I think about all the people I have tended to and
Mm-hmm.
have cared for and the ways in which they've grown. My husband is a good example of this. I can see the ways in which my care and feeding of his soul have allowed him to grow and expand in these ways. And the power of that is right in front of me. And
Yeah.
yet I
Yeah.
have denied myself the same
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
so long. And I will say, like, right before I started the great work, right before I started moving into this space of actually even allowing myself to step out of those roles that I play, I was sick.
Mm.
I was in bed a lot. I had to have back surgery. There were all of these signs that my body was giving me that, like, you're asleep. You
Yeah.
need to wake up
Yeah.
and you have a choice to make. You can either stay asleep or you can spend a little bit of time truly getting to know yourself and your gifts and your abilities. And it makes me almost want to cry because I think about how desperate I was for connection. And I was seeking that connection through the external world. And
Yes.
yet inside of me was where it really was. And that landscape is just stunningly beautiful in there. But I was not giving myself the opportunity to see it.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, so yeah, I mean, I really think that there's so much potential in all of us, but first we have to seek it in ourselves.
Yeah. The power of connecting to knowing and empowering ourselves. Like, so many of us want to be or are on the spiritual journey, and it's like there's just all these options spinning around us, right? Like,
Mhm.
for better or worse, we're in a time with access and noise and information. And I think a lot of us start the journey of like, okay, what's my purpose? And how do I manifest? Like, how do I manifest what I want? Abundance, money, hello, success, and what's my purpose? And there's and certainly, like, I am guilty of that too, like the what's my purpose? I need to know what my purpose is. But how can you can't is the answer, because I experienced this. Like, you cannot understand those things without the lens of knowing who you are. Otherwise, very simply and very logically, like, you can see, like, you're trying to process and understand those things from a lens that's not serving you. And that once you know yourself, you're like, oh, that's actually not what I want or what I care about. Or how could I have found my purpose when I had all these walls up and all this conditioning and was, putting on these faces and these personas for other people. So I actually think I personally feel really called to eventually help to outline the process for people of like, here's some places to start on your
Sure.
discovery, your journey of discovery, expansion, whatever we want to call it, evolution, consciousness. I am not ready to do that yet, but it is very clear to me that the base, the foundation, the place that and I think you would probably recommend starting is like, know yourself. Get
100.
to know yourself. And like you said, once you do that, there's a lot of clarity that comes. There's a lot of peace. There's a lot of like, yeah, just relief and like a guiding light also.
That's yes, beautifully said. And I agree. And I want to go back to Jung because originally he had four archetypes that he talked about. Um, One is the persona, and that's what you and I have kind of been touching on, which is the map.
Mm-hmm.
It's who you show yourself to be to the outside world. Then there's the shadow, and I think shadow work has become really popular. A lot of people are talking about shadow work, and I'm here for it. I think it's great. And the shadow that's all those pieces that you hide deep down inside.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to show anyone because of fear of not being accepted
Yeah.
generally. Then there's the anima or the animus. And for us as women, the animus is the masculine that gets repressed. I recently got my very first tattoo. I don't know if you can
Yes.
see it. Oh gosh, it's actually really hard to show
Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
there it is. So it's an eagle and I have it on my left arm. And the reason I did that is because the eagle is generally such a masculine image. But I
Interesting.
wanted to have it on the left side, which is typically considered your feminine side, as a reminder of how important it is to have a balance there.
Yeah.
And then finally, Jung talks about the self, and he's like that the self is what happens when you go through the process of individuation, of self-discovery, of integrating all these other pieces of you and acknowledging that all of it fits and it's all beautiful and it's all supposed to be there and there's a reason for it. And then once you're able to do that, go through that process, and what emerges is who you are
Yeah.
in every level.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's such a gorgeous and exceptional goal to have, is to say, I want to know myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it is worth it. It absolutely is.
Yes. Now that I have done that work, and it's not perfect, and the work that we did together really, I want to go into it and talk about my experience, but I have a few more questions for you just to kind of
Sure.
make sure people are understanding exactly what it is. But it just, like, once you do the work and start to see the other side of that, like, yes, it is so transformational. But tell us about what people could expect in a reading with you, and then what they could expect, like, from it, what they're getting out of it.
Okay. I love that you call it a reading, because I think it's true. It feels a little bit like a tarot reading in a way, for example, because of the cards, and there's all of the different archetypes on each card. So there's steps that I go through. It's a process. So the first process is I don't tell you hardly anything about what we're
True.
about to
This
do.
is true.
And the reason I don't do that is because you're going to start thinking about it right away,
Mm-hmm.
and getting in your head. And so I want you to stay in a place of intuition and gut reaction. And so depending on where we are, but the way it worked with you and I, Brooke, was I laid out a ton of cards on a table, all the cards face up. And I say that I just want you to quickly look at each card and decide if it is a yes, it belongs in you somewhere, somehow, and it's really a huge part of your core. Maybe yes, and then probably not or no. So you go through a process of just organizing the cards, pure and
Mm-hmm.
simple. And I try not to stare at you while you do it. Um, so I give you space to do that, but not much time. And then from there, I basically disregard the probably nots and the no's right off the bat. And depending on how big the yes stack is, we might even say goodbye to the maybe yes pile.
Yep.
And then I organize what we have in front of us, the yeses, in the way that my book tells me to, and it's color coded. So I go by the color coding and I look to see how many archetypes you have in each of the families that are represented. There's 12 families. And then we just start going through this very creative process of elimination, essentially.
Yeah.
And there's, I'll show you, for example, so the everyman card, it looks like this. And it's just all of these little tiny humans in suits on the front of the card. And it is part of the archetypal family of the advocate, citizen, networker, and servant as well. And on the back of the card, it shares strengths and challenges, and then it gives just a tiny little blurb, a little narrative. And so we work through the bulk of the cards by just getting to know the back of them, right? A little bit.
Yep.
And then from there, I get my big book, which is just beat to hell because I've used it so many times as a reference. And there's a longer narrative and there's a quote in there. And usually what happens, kind of the magic of it, I think, is that there's these words and phrases that I'll read, and the person sitting across from me who's experiencing this for the first time will hear them and they'll say, yes, I'm having such an emotional response to
Yes.
the way that these words are pieced together. Or no, this is so not me. I thought it was me, but it's not me. Get it out of here.
I
That's
also feel
how
like the second you pick up the cards for that stage, like you already know what if it suits that person. I feel like I was getting that feeling, and maybe even the stage before. It was almost like an accountability partner, right? Like
Mhm,
I can't
mhm.
lie to myself here because she already knows.
You know, what I try to do is I stay very open to whatever unfolds because I don't want to energetically influence the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But as I start to get to know you and sit in your energy, I can sort of already feel where we're going. And it usually comes from a place of this one's going to feel too harsh or this one's going to feel too limiting. So where can I dig in my little stack over here to something that feels more in alignment
Yeah.
for the person across from me? Yeah.
Have you had any experiences where you are like, this person's totally bullshitting themselves and they're not in alignment, so this is not going to show true alignment?
I have, but thankfully not very many of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's more common is, especially for younger people, and the reason I think that they're like this is because they're still so very open to their becoming
Mm-hmm.
and their evolution that they're afraid to let go of some of these cards. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'll read one and they'll go, yes, for sure that's me. And then I'll read another and another and another. And again, we're not getting anywhere
Yeah.
because there's almost like, it's almost like having to unstick Velcro is the way I would describe it, you know? And so really it takes longer for folks who are not able to sift through it as easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's part of the process, you know, and I think it can be beautiful too,
Yes.
especially when they literally will not believe me when I say you're going to end up with 3 or 4
Yeah.
out of this whole
Yes.
stack. And all of a sudden there we are, and it's breathtaking. It's just really a beautiful, almost coming home or remembering for them of who they are, who they always have been. And to your point too, you know, as we grow and evolve, the cards might change a little bit, and that's normal. But really, I believe that all of these cards, all of these archetypes live inside of us.
Yeah.
And it's really more about who needs to come to the surface
Yeah.
in this moment in time, in this lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
as we're going through this massive transition in our life. For example, you know, there's all of these, you know, it's like a huge team that you've got in you that can help you move to the next level.
Yeah. And for me, the process was really beautiful. There was as much power in the cards that we kept and feeling, hearing, knowing, understanding them, in the cards that I got rid of, because it
Mm-hmm.
was almost this like moment of validation and gratitude for letting go some parts of me that I knew weren't aligned or like weren't my core, but like I had chosen to be, for all of the conditioning reasons, all of the stories, all of the like outward approval. And so I told you, like, after we left, I cried, and like that was actually a big part of what was like, I was just so grateful of like, no, I have moved on from those things. Like those are things very much that a different part of me, a different time not that long ago would have identified with and not been able to see, like, no, that is not actually a core part of you. That is not actually in your natural being.
Mm-hmm.
And so the ability to like let them go and be like, I really am done with that. Like that felt really cool.
It's a shedding, right? You're releasing And I believe that when you release those pieces that you might have been holding on to energetically for one reason or another, you're also creating so much space, so much
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for expansion and growth. And also this, because you know you're, so the way we usually end up is you have a primary archetype that's really your driving force, and then two or three kind of wings supporting emerging archetypes that add layer and nuance, because as humans we are all layered and
Mm-hmm.
nuanced. But then you've got that vision in front of you, and to me the power of the results
Yeah.
is that then you have a profile that is unique to who you are, and it can help you in decision making,
Mm-hmm.
in gut checks, the language that you use, the behaviors that you want to engage in or choose not to engage in anymore.
Yeah.
There's something really powerful about just having this deeper understanding of the self that will help guide you. It's a compass of sorts.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And something that's been fun for me too is I got introduced to you through one of my best friends, Jacqueline, and um we obviously compared notes afterward, and she and I, both of our like main archetype is the magician, which like no surprise, we're so different in a lot of ways, but also very similar and feel very connected. And so it's like an ability to remind each other who we are too, and like, hey babe, don't you're a magician, don't worry about that, or like let's go out in the world now and be this together and support each other in being this. Like that's a really has so far been a really cool experience, and I know will just add to our friendship and our ability to support and see each other.
Oh, how cool. I had forgotten that
Yeah.
he was still a magician. It makes so much sense now. And it immediately when I met you, and I've again with Jacqueline, I've only spent just a tiny little baby bit of time with her.
Mm-hmm.
But how can I explain this? This goes into my intuitive side. I can feel the similarities that you just described. I
Yeah.
understand exactly what you're saying. And, you know, I that's why I think this archetype, work is really powerful, because it gives you a language and a tool set, and it gives you
Mm-hmm.
something that you can hold, and it's a map, it's an inner map, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I will say too that, speaking of all of these different ways that you can identify your purpose through spirituality these days, there's so much access, which I think is beautiful. The thing that's different about this archetypal work is that you can't log online somewhere and take a quiz and it be accurate, right? I mean, I'm sure there are quizzes out there. What's my archetype? But the point is that you have to put in the work yourself, and you
Mm-hmm.
really have to engage. And there's so much participation involved in this process that is, I think, critical to getting the relief, for example, that you were feeling about
Yeah.
setting down the cards that did not work for you anymore, that maybe served you for a time and served a previous version of yourself, but no longer do. I mean, you just can't get that through a lot of other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your archetypes?
My primary is a translator. And so I use words and language and imagery to help make meaning based on how I view the world and how I view circumstances. And then muse, which you share also,
Yes.
seeing the potential in others, being a mirror that's reflective of the highest self is the ultimate goal for me in that one. And then seeker. Those are my three. And it was so funny because when we were meeting, you're right. I mean, you were reading me just as I was reading you, I thought. And you were like, there's another part of you that's in there somewhere that you haven't acknowledged yet. And I think you're completely right. It's an unfolding for me too. And I will also say it is hard to do this. I had to do this for myself. I put
Yeah.
myself through the process. That's extra hard.
Yeah, because
To
you
not
have
have the
so much
accountability
yeah.
partner.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's really tricky, but so I think you're right. And I think that I'll get there eventually, but it's going to take a little bit more practice.
What do you think's holding you back?
I would say that learning how to pragmatically integrate these new pieces of myself that I'm
Mhm.
discovering into the life that I currently have
Yeah.
is hard work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it takes a lot of courage. And some days I'm braver than others.
Mm. Yeah. Beautifully put. It's like, why couldn't we have these awakenings when we're like 13? You know? Like,
That would be so nice.
no, this, of course, like we have to go through life, learn all the lessons, like learn the things, and then midlife, when we have in a lot of ways, like created lives for ourselves and relationships, it's like, oh, by the way, I'm different than I ever was since you've known me.
Yeah.
And here I am. Hi. um,
It's been a painful process for me. I've had to let go of relationships in my life. I don't speak to my mom, for example. It's a very, very fraught, difficult, probably most painful thing I've ever had to do. Um, and and I think that as a, I don't know, recovering people pleaser, whatever you want, however you might want to describe that, like it's painful to put myself out there.
yeah.
It's not easy.
Hmm.
It's 100% worth it. And as a mom who has 3 young children, I think it's critical to their growth to see me fully living
Yes.
the life that is for my highest good and my best outpouring of my own energy. But gosh, it requires a recalibration basically every day right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that. Going back to our caterpillar and butterfly conversation, one thing that I think to myself a lot is like, imagine if the caterpillar chose to stay a caterpillar.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if only like they would have no idea what they were missing out on, but like, would you ever choose to like be something that just crawls on the ground and is terrified of getting like a million things in the world could squish you, damage you, harm you? You can't really go very far very fast if you knew that you could, or you could otherwise be
Everybody
a
at the sun.
butterfly. Yes. Like, yes.
No,
So
no one would pick it
yeah,
if they knew the other
but
side.
you just
How
don't.
many
No.
people do in this life?
Yeah.
Because it feels like the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Um, and yet you're right. I mean, the beauty on the other side of it and the lightness of being,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
incredible lightness of being is right
Yeah.
in front of you.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think it's a good reminder. Like, are you going to be a caterpillar today, or are you going to be a butterfly? Like,
Yeah.
I choose to be the butterfly and like go through the process, and like it might take a bit to get to the butterfly, but I really think these cards found you, and this process found you to be your tool. And I talked about I'm going through my own process of like sharing my gifts and owning them and embodying them. And so I'm working with a friend who has become a mentor, and she's a psychic, and I like can't wait to get to the point where she is one day she's out in the world saying, hi, I'm a psychic, like in the most beautiful grounded way. Like, that's her title.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that,
Psychic and intuitive tarot reader. And it's such an inspiration to me. But we were talking about these tools that actually just allow us the ability to interact on the human level with these things. Like she uses tarot cards. I use the Akashic records. You have your cards in your process, your as a way to kind of explain to people and invite them in. But we know behind the scenes, it's actually there's a lot more going on. But you can explain tarot cards to someone. I can explain the Akashic records. You can easily, logically explain the cards in your process. And I think that is like a tool that we have for now, maybe forever, to make what we're doing make sense on the human level, make it approachable, give ourselves permission for a little while to like work through that and learn our bigger capabilities. But just like bring it down a notch, like
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, meaning can be found in these tools. And then we also can bring new meaning to them and a fresh approach,
yes,
or
yes,
our own,
yes.
pieces. But, I will say, I think that for me, with the archetypes, for example, because I do believe that these cards found me, because I speak the language of archetypes,
Mm-hmm.
as I have expanded my meditation practice, my yoga practice, these other practices, rituals that allow for me to tap in a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more easily and give me a direct line to the divine. Archetypes are also finding me there in that
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
And I've mentioned to you, I think I have these poems I've written, and these poems are, I can't really explain it other than to say, I feel as if these divine feminine archetypes are coming and sitting next to me and telling me their story, and I write it down. And maybe this is the next phase in
Mm-hmm.
my process. Maybe I can have my own set of cards one day that represent these beautiful um, characters that really span across time and space, right? But it has astonished me what that feels like,
Yeah.
to sit in their energy. And I mean, the first time it happened, I was mad at my husband, like furious, and I needed to be somewhere. So I sat on my yoga mat and I furiously was writing. And it was a poem about Joan of Arc. And I literally could feel her energy next to me, her strength, her power, her bravery. Um, and I can't explain it, Brooke, other than it was the most surreal experience. It was super cool, super, super cool. And so that's the next thing I'm exploring as I move forward.
I mean, it's incredible. And I think to break it down in a very simplistic way, it's you're essentially channeling
Mhm.
these archetypes. And I can't wait to find out what the message is down the road, but maybe it is like there maybe is a different way to look at archetypes in a bigger, more empowering, more impactful way, especially for women, since it's women that seem to come through for you, or maybe you were these women in past lives and like
Mhm.
those parts of you are coming out. Like I cannot wait. And you know I love how we say maybe about things that we actually know are inevitable or true. And I look forward to the moment where you and I can, and I think it's not far off, where you and I can look at each other and be like, we've arrived. This is who we are. This is what we do. And this is how we show it to the world. Because I think it's going to be so impactful and powerful. And I just like, certainly things register different virtually, which is how we are right now. But I can feel it now. And certainly when we were in person, I was like, oh shit, this woman is powerful. She has a lot more to share. You talked about the iceberg. Like you got like 2% of the iceberg sticking up, and you got a big ass iceberg under the water. Okay. So
I received that. And I'm gonna let that soak in because, you know, the other thing that I'm feeling from you is that you are ready and you are right there. And if I can help open that little gilded cage within you just by saying it out loud, that you are exactly who you need to be in this exact moment, there is no future, right, need for this. Like you can do that. And I feel that from you. I mean, you already have everything you need, and you have such great power within you. Um, you're very strong, but there's this sparkly side of you that shines through. And I cannot wait to see you fully step into that. And I think you could do it literally today if you wanted to.
thank you. Thanks for saying that. It does. Yeah, it does. Similar to you, I'm in a place where like having that, not a push, but the like friendly hand on the back from people I admire certainly helps. And I think that you sharing that message, like, yes, you're speaking to me, but I feel like there's a lot of people in our audience that you are speaking to that need to hear that. And I think that message is very true for a lot of people. So if you're listening and like you felt that in your heart, in your body, in your soul, like that message was for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just keep going. One little step at a time. Just keep saying yes to yourself.
Yeah, and it helps to find the friends and new friends, like if you need to, that believe that see that are excited by like seeing what this new, and I hate to call it a new version because for me it doesn't feel new. It feels like the truest version that I just like haven't had the opportunity to be yet in this lifetime, or at least for a large portion of this lifetime. So it's not like new, it's more of like a getting back to the truest self. Yeah, so thank you for saying that. What are a few of the other tools that you use to like really know and embody yourself?
I love free writing, free journaling. I do that as often as I can. Um, and you know, Elizabeth Gilbert, the incredible Eat, Pray, Love author, has a practice that she sends out to her universe of people that I've adopted, which is, um, you know, asking love, what would you have me know today?
Mm,
And because love can be so many things to people, it can be your higher self, it can be God, it can be um, anything you need it to be. For me, it is that truest part of myself that I'm speaking to, the one that's guiding me. And when I write to love, I my ego steps all the way out.
mhm,
It's
mhm.
almost the sensation is like I'm blacking out. I don't remember what I've written. I don't know what I'm writing when I'm writing it because I'm so present in the moment,
Yes. Yes.
and I am trusting and allowing something to emerge from me that doesn't even feel like it's mine, but I know it is. And a lot of times, especially lately, it's been showing up as advice. And so
Yes.
it's the advice that, you know, I need to hear that I don't want to hear. And it gives me strength and gives me a sense of vision for what I need to do.
Yeah. I love that when it comes through and you're like, shit, this definitely didn't come from me because this is not what I want to hear or what I want to do, or this is not
Mhm.
making things easier. And I think like that practice, channel journaling, asking love questions, like it is actually such a profound practice, and it's such a great way to start because you can ease into it. And what I've found is as the information comes through, and it's like I'll use words sometimes when I'm channeling or writing or journaling that I'm like, that is not a word that's in my vocabulary, or that's not how I speak. And as these things start to happen, or you get a piece of advice that you're like, okay, I'm going to test that out today and see what happens. Like you start to build that trust muscle for it. And you start to be like, oh shit, this is real. This is cool. Now I have a place and a tool to come to for these things. And it's a game changer. Like you don't have to do a whole channeled beautiful poem right away, right? Like just start with the little questions. I know people, and I use tarot for this as well. I've just started to get into tarot this year, and it's just a fun tool, but I do that every day. I'll say, you know, what do I need to know today? What do I need to hear today? And the stuff that comes through is like always so interesting. So I think like find your tool and ask some questions of reflection or guidance. And it's a really simple, easy place to start. And only you, it's just like you involved, like, no one else has to know you're doing it, you know? And see where that takes you. Cause I think that can open up a lot of doors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so much, you know, that is lying literally beneath the surface in wait for you to access and for me to access. And, you know, I also am I love a guided meditation. Oh my goodness. I love it. And the visuals that come up, and this is also Jungian, the visuals that come up for me are so beautiful and not of me. It doesn't feel like. And I will do, it's almost like a dream interpretation where I'll get this vision of a whale, for example. And then I'll Google what does a whale symbolize? And it is exactly the message we needed. It is exactly correct. There's no, it's just magical. The whole process is so magical. And I get chills up and down, and it's like, okay, it is a tool. These are tools that we all have, that we can all access. And it's like, man, it doesn't have to be hard. It can be so easy, and it can flow so well.
And fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. And back to your, you know, one of your original thoughts of like humor, bringing more humor in, like start to believe in and play with the magic of the universe. And like, hey, everything is magic. And like, okay, a praying mantis just crawled across my like back porch. That's magical. Look that up. What does that mean? Why is that happening? Versus like, oh, cool, there's a praying mantis walk. Like I have so much fun with stuff like just, and like take it or leave it, you know, like
really funny, Brooke, is that you said praying mantis is funny in this moment, because so I'm today signing all the closing papers on a house in Ojai, and we went and saw this house. I swear I manifested this house. I don't know how it's now mine. That's another story for another day. However, I showed up after the official like showing of the house. My 3-year-old, my husband and I, we didn't sneak on. We gave a heads up, but we went back that evening to see sunset on the property. And we turned the corner, and there's a pregnant praying mantis waiting for us.
No. Oh my God.
Staring me in the face. She crawls and sits on my foot and then proceeds to land right here. And she's kind of just looking at me like this.
Oh my God. Okay, see people, this is what we're talking about. There is magic everywhere. I mean, yes. Oh, I love that.
That was the house's way of saying like, you're mine now.
Yeah.
We belong together.
Yeah.
I'm sending you a little friend. I'm telling you. And isn't that hilarious?
Yes.
What?
And of all the things I could have said in this moment, like praying man. Yeah. It's so fun. And I have one more question, and then I thought of actually a really perfect way to end this episode. If you're up for it,
Sure.
would you be up for reading one of your poems?
Yes,
Okay.
I would be.
Okay. One last question. You have 20 seconds with someone. This is the only time you're going to meet them and interact with them, and you are tasked with saying something that will impact their life. What would you say, or what would you tell them?
I would say that everything that you need to find joy and happiness is already inside of you. And the only job you have is to take a look at who you are deep down and to love all of the pieces, all of the parts that show up, and to trust the process.
Yeah.
Know that whatever comes up is yours and it belongs to you, and you're safe in that, and no one can ever take it away from you.
And that discovery process is actually so beautiful. There's so much learning and understanding and growth in that process too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's all inward.
Yeah. One of the most, if you guys haven't gotten this already, and I'm like tearing up a bit, like for like the fourth time in this episode. But if you haven't worked it out already, like knowing yourself is one of the most powerful things you can do. And it is a very important first step on this process to peace, evolution, higher consciousness, joy, all the things. So
Yeah.
I hope this episode inspired you for that. And Jenny, I would love to hear one of your channeled poems before we sign off.
All right. I'm pulling it up here. Let's see. So, okay. Let's see which one I want to do. I think I'd like to do Eve. So this is Eve of Adam and Eve.
Oh, whoa, this is a
Just
good
small
one. Okay.
character in our lives. And we all know the story, right, of Eve and how she's been villainized forever. And so I sat down one day and I asked her to tell me more. And this is what came to me. First woman, ancient mother, lend me your eyes to see wisdom as the way past domestication, cloaked as paradise, like some elaborate movie set, all facades and lighting and trick shots. Sit with me under the apple tree. Let me rest my head in your lap while you tell me the truth of how you set yourself free. Braid your wisdom into my hair. Crown me with flowers of gold. Place me in the moment when you became your own. First woman, ancient mother, lend me your vision. Reassure me that the fall had merit. Our gifts are not godless. There is higher purpose to the violence they claim we deserve. In the cool shade here, you're beaming as you gaze down at me. Your eyes, a constellation, a celestial map to fold and keep. We birthed the world of men. We have the power to create anew. Yes, I bit the apple of hope. I've been waiting patiently for you.
Mic drop.
I've shared that with many people. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I have chills and a lot of emotion around that. That is so beautiful. And I think, you know, it's funny that you're drawn to the collective unconsciousness, because I think, you know, that poem and probably your others actually like tap into, I mean, that one taps into it so deeply. No matter what we know as women or are or understand, like, oh, I just feel that like in my bones. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for
Thank
sharing that,
you.
Jenny.
Thank you.
You're incredible. Thank you for your wisdom and everything that you bring to the world.
And thank you for the same.
Thanks. All right. Thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed this one.